One Nation FM.
There's been some stories about this horrific bus crash, between Makkah and Medina, which we will talk about and cover just now. So listen out for that, right? Sadly, so in the meantime, from one Dr. Imtiaz Suliman to another Imtiaz Suliman, the director and portfolio manager at Sentio Capital Management. Imtiaz, it's always good talking to you. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, we will connect with Imtiaz just in a moment. Doesn't stop you from commenting yourself, and the best way to comment, text or voice notes on a series of issues, 061 766 0355. Otherwise, just post comments on the various social media. Salam Media social media platforms. We will certainly pick it up. I'll get Rahima to, in fact, read out some of those comments that we're getting right away.
Walaikum salam,
Okay, just good chatting to you. Thanks for your time. Right. You want to pick up on South Africa now has got a sudden COVID rise in the last week, but you want to talk about COVID in China and how that impacts on markets, right?
Yeah, sure. I think what we're seeing in China is that they've been pursuing the zero COVID policy. And effectively, what they've been doing is locking down different areas as they see cases spike. So we've seen Shanghai being in extended lockdowns for a few weeks now. And over the weekend, it seems that the virus has spread to Beijing, with Beijing entering restricted lockdowns in certain areas. And this is having a very profound impact on, firstly, the lives of the people that are being locked down, and secondly, the production and supply side of the economy, as China is a large producer of many goods. And this puts more pressure on the supply chain issues that we've seen. And this is exacerbating some of the shortages in goods and services, as well as demand for commodities. So oil is down another 3% today, and that's on the back of concerns that China is going to be using less oil overall due to this rolling lockdown. So it's a very disruptive strategy. And I think it stems from China, pursuing the zero COVID policy from the beginning of the COVID pandemic, but also because their vaccine rollout seems to be not as effective as some of the other countries around the
Interesting.
world.
Yeah. Does that impact on us at all?
It does. So certainly from a supply chain perspective, China is a big producer of many goods around the world. And we're seeing these rolling lockdowns have an impact on supply chain issues. There's already concerns around chips and iPhones being in shortage due to the lockdowns, but it's definitely going to impact South Africa as well.
Okay, and then interestingly, you want to pick up the issue of the world using more coal again. That almost sounds like a contradiction considering the issues around global warming. Tell me about that.
Yeah, correct. The world was on a path towards decarbonizing and using less of the fossil fuels. But effectively, what has happened since the Ukraine-Russian war, there's been a shortage of natural gas and energy prices have spiked. So we've seen natural gas prices spike, we've seen oil prices spike, and that has put the focus back onto coal. What this means is that coal-fired power plants that were mothballed are now being recommissioned and they're being put to use. It is positive for South Africa because South Africa produces a lot of coal and exports that coal. When we can get that coal out, as we have issues around Transnet and the port. But it seems to be that the world went too far in terms of the green energy side, and this is having an effect on energy prices, which means that we have to use more coal again, and that means more carbon emissions effectively.
Okay. By the way, on that, I'm going to just tell listeners that I had a very fascinating conversation, I think a few days ago, with Nazir Jamal and Professor Ruchiliti Marawala around that issue. So if you go to Salam Media, you'll find it. I also moderated a UJ Clouds debate on the greening of the world and what that really means. So just watch out for that, right? Let's talk about inflation and the slowing of the world growth. What does that mean?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is as the world emerged from the COVID crisis, China is sort of still in that crisis, but we've seen a huge demand for durable goods, and that's put pressure on those prices. And the Fed, which is the central bank of the US, has kept monetary policy very low, which means that consumers have built up a lot of savings and they're now putting those savings to work, which is causing a demand for goods that are in shortage, and this is causing prices to increase. And secondary to that, you've had fuel prices go up due to the war in Russia and Ukraine. You've had food prices go up as well. And this is putting pressure on inflation worldwide. So what we're seeing at the moment is central banks raising interest rates, inflation going up, which is not a good scenario for equities overall, because you're getting tight monetary policy, high inflation, which doesn't bode well for earnings and company earnings. And that's putting pressure on stock markets worldwide. So there's a lot of concern around world growth slowing as we see inflation going up and interest rates going up at the same time.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Lots to think about and reflect on that. Imtiaz Suliman, thank you for sharing that. I need to do my homework, and I'm sure other investors, potentially with some sort of a portfolio of anything, they need to do their homework about the impact, the ripple effect of things all around the world. Imtiaz Suliman is the director, the portfolio manager at Sentio Capital Management. We're going to get to Ashraf Gangrakar in just a moment, but in the meantime, there's some updates on feedback from the audience, from listeners, and there's some sort of world stories that we need to cover. Rahima, what have you got?
Yes, so somebody
audience point of view, if you know, and I hope you don't, but if you know anybody who's been close by to that action and that horrific crash, therefore, let us know. We certainly like to talk to them if it's possible to do just that. Okay, Ashraf Gangrakar is pretty fired up. We'll talk to him in a moment.